This place felt like a sanctuary, André Rieu's favorite little shop, where a simple hello carried stories, and even a quiet moment echoed with melody. "I have 5 grandchildren. I want to buy violins for them," he told Martin, the shopkeeper. It wasn't just a purchase, it was a legacy in motion. But behind the smile of the man who built a global empire by reviving the waltz was a sudden silence that no one expected. The music stopped. At 74, during a tour in Mexico City, André collapsed. A man who had danced across continents, performing nearly 100 shows every year and owning more than 80 properties, suddenly went dark. Concerts were canceled, fans were left waiting, and quietly, his son took over the reins of the empire. For a man who once declared he'd play until he turned 140, this may have been his final curtain call. Born in Maastricht, Netherlands in 1949, André entered a home where music was the rule, not the reward. His father, the conductor of the Maastricht Symphony Orchestra, ran the household like a drill sergeant. Love was a rare currency. Discipline, silence, and strict Roman Catholic traditions shaped every corner of André's childhood. Being the third of 6 children, warmth and laughter weren't things he remembers. Friends weren't welcome, and emotions were kept under lock and key. André once confessed, not with anger, but deep acceptance. "My parents didn't love me very much. That wound didn't just heal, it hardened into purpose." Even as a young child, André's energy didn't sit well in a home obsessed with control. His mother was obsessed with academics and practice schedules. When a teacher once called André an artist, she was offended. André quickly realized he was only visible when he was flawless. That pressure chased him into adulthood and into therapy. But what haunted him also carved him. It became the very fire that transformed his pain into music that people could feel. At 5, André found an unexpected muse, not in the violin itself, but in the woman teaching him. She was 18, graceful, golden-haired, and André, captivated, found himself completely consumed by her presence. He didn't understand theory, but he wanted to sound like her, move like her. While others fumbled over notes, André unlocked something magical: vibrato. The trembling sound that breathes life into music. Not technical perfection, but emotion. That's what stuck with him. That's what he chased. The rift with his father only deepened over time. André wasn't interested in solemn symphonies. He wanted music to be an experience, joyful, alive. But when he told his father he wanted to play waltzes, the response was cold, brutal. "I didn't educate you to do waltzes." When André introduced his future wife, Marjorie, to his parents, the rejection was immediate and cutting. His mother told her to leave. She told André to clean his room. That was it. André left and never returned. His parents never attended a single concert, not even when he was filling arenas worldwide. When his father passed in 1992, it was without ever seeing who André had become. But even in rejection, André was learning. While still performing in his father's orchestra, he noticed something odd. Most musicians looked bored, detached. Conversations were about the weather, their wages, anything but the music. Yet something happened during the encores. They'd play a Strauss waltz, and suddenly the crowd came alive. Faces lit up. People hummed. That was the spark. André realized he didn't want to impress critics. He wanted to connect with people. There was one unforgettable moment. A dying woman, unresponsive for days, suddenly opened her eyes when André played a soft serenade. That was the proof. Music, real music, could revive a soul. It wasn't about complex arrangements. It was about reaching the heart. That moment planted the seed of a dream. André began to imagine something bigger. In 1978, with a newborn at home and little to his name, André formed the Maastricht Salon Orchestra. They started small, border towns, weddings, forgotten dance halls. They played old waltzes most had left behind. It wasn't glamorous, and money was tight. But André felt alive. One night, performing Franz Lehar's Gold and Silver Waltz, he poured his soul into the melody. Something clicked. The music spoke back. That night he made a promise to himself. This is what I was meant to do. 10 years later, nearing 40, André realized the Salon Orchestra had reached its limit. It felt too safe, too quiet. He longed to bring back the magic he saw in old Strauss performances: energy, movement, spectacle. But starting fresh meant high stakes. Professional musicians cost money. Every booking was a gamble. Still, André believed joy was worth the risk. So on New Year's Day, 1988, he launched something daring: the Johann Strauss Orchestra. Just 12 musicians to start, a modest audience. But from the first note, it felt different. André stripped away the stiffness. The musicians wore color. The stage lit up. They laughed. They danced. Critics mocked it. Too flashy, too unserious. But the audience? They clapped. They sang. They felt something. Then came the moment that transformed his entire career. May 1995, during the Champions League final in Vienna. Ajax versus Bayern Munich. At halftime, Rieu and his orchestra performed Waltz Number 2 Inches by Shostakovich. What followed was surreal. 50,000 football fans, swaying, humming, entranced. It was electric. That performance was broadcast across Europe to over 300 million viewers. A classical waltz turned into a stadium anthem. Within weeks, Rieu's CD sales soared. His album Strauss & Company became a runaway success. It held the #1 spot in the Netherlands for 19 weeks. People who'd never listened to classical music were now fans. Concert tickets vanished. The waltz had returned not as a relic, but a revelation. But not everyone applauded. The classical elite were furious. They called him a sellout, a fraud. Some claimed he was turning history into a sideshow. One brutal review labeled his performances musical pornography. The backlash intensified in 2008 when Rieu built a full-scale replica of Vienna's Schönbrunn Palace, complete with fountains, horses, even an ice rink, for his concert backdrop. The cost? 34 million euros? Purists were outraged. But Rieu never wavered. He wasn't playing for the critics. He was playing for the people. He didn't just want to make music. He wanted to break down barriers. To him, classical music wasn't supposed to sit behind glass cases, gathering dust in the minds of elite circles. He dreamed bigger. He envisioned mothers, teachers, janitors, and teenagers all swaying to melodies once reserved for royal concert halls. And the world listened. Crowds showed up in droves, clapping, dancing, and buying up his albums like wildfire. By 1994, the ripples he'd made were turning into tidal waves, and in 1995, it all exploded. In the Netherlands alone, 750,000 copies flew off the shelves in a matter of months. Germany couldn't get enough either. His music broke into the top 5 on the charts. That kind of success for a classical piece? Unthinkable. Until he did it. And then it wasn't just about records. It was about rewriting what classical music could be. With over 3 million albums sold globally, he wasn't competing with other classical acts. He was outpacing pop titans like Celine Dion and Bon Jovi. Suddenly, major retailers were rearranging their shelves to make space for something most had ignored for years: classical music. Industry giants dubbed the phenomenon the Rieu effect. And it wasn't just a catchy label. Universal Music's profits confirmed it. His albums were making more money than any other classical artist on their roster. One bold move in 1987, naming his orchestra after Johann Strauss, had started it all. At the time, critics called it pretentious, but what he really did was breathe life into a fading legacy. Back in the 80s, Strauss's waltzes were nearly forgotten. But fast forward to 2010, and performances of his music had multiplied 16-fold. That wasn't coincidence. That was Rieu's influence. What started as a modest 12-piece orchestra had grown into a 60-musician force, surpassing even Strauss's original ensemble. In 1999, marking the centennial of Strauss's passing, Rieu released a tribute album and shared how deeply he revered the composer. Even Austria took notice, awarding him one of their highest honors for preserving their national treasure. But Rieu didn't stop at accolades. He transformed concerts into experiences. In 2008, he stunned the world with a decision no one saw coming. He constructed a colossal replica of Vienna's Schönbrunn Palace and took it on tour. Not a stage design, an actual movable palace. Real fountains, grand chandeliers, ice rinks, and even horse-drawn carriages made it a mobile piece of Austrian history. The scale dwarfed even the most extravagant setups by legendary rock bands. But this wasn't about showing off. He wanted people who might never step foot in Vienna to feel its splendor. The logistics were jaw-dropping, 6 days and 100 workers to build it each time. But it worked. Fans flooded arenas in Europe and Australia. In Melbourne alone, nearly 39,000 packed the Telstra Dome, setting a record for Australia's largest classical concert. 3 shows later, that number neared 90,000. Meanwhile, back in Europe, ticket sales were just as fierce. At one point, his DVDs dominated Australia's sales charts, with 8 out of 10 top spots bearing his name. Only 2 artists, Pink and AC/DC, managed to wedge their way in. This wasn't a phase. This was a movement. His tour landed him among the world's top 10 grossing artists, brushing shoulders with names like Madonna and The Police. For someone dubbed the King of the Waltz, that kind of success was once unimaginable. Yet it was real. His sales brought in more than 500 platinum awards. No classical artist had ever come close. Universal Music even crafted a special chrome violin just for him to celebrate. They said they'd never seen anything like it. But fame never shields anyone from heartbreak. In December 2016, while his orchestra was on a festive UK tour, sorrow struck. Ruud Merckx, Rieu's trusted trombonist of over 20 years, passed away in his sleep while they were in Leeds. His wife, also part of the orchestra, was with him. They had children waiting at home. The loss was staggering. Rieu cancelled the Nottingham concert without hesitation, and soon postponed the entire UK tour. London, Glasgow, Manchester, Birmingham, all wiped off the calendar. He always called his musicians a family, and in that moment, he showed what that really meant. They grieved together, and when Rieu returned to the UK months later, something had changed. The magic wasn't gone, but it felt heavier, more fragile. Fans still came, but the shadow of that December lingered. Through it all, he kept moving forward. But in March 2024, the man who seemed invincible hit a wall. At 74, he still crisscrossed the globe, full of life and rhythm, until Mexico City nearly broke him. After 2 shows, his body surrendered. The altitude, jet lag, and flu ganged up on him. With Mexico City sitting high above sea level, even his orchestra suffered. Nosebleeds, fatigue, dizziness. But for Rieu, it was worse. He could barely stand. Backstage, he called his wife and confessed something he'd never dared say. "I don't want a first concert day like this anymore." For the first time, the showman who never missed a performance admitted he might need to stop. The tour was cancelled. 40,000 fans were left disappointed, and Rieu went home, not as a failure, but as a man who had finally realized his limits. This wasn't a new battle. In 2010, he fought through a viral ear infection that robbed him of balance. In 2019, he performed with a blazing fever. Always pushing, always smiling through the pain. But Mexico changed that. He told his team, "No more." And Pierre, his son, his business partner, listened. Already handling logistics and day-to-day operations, Pierre now stepped up in a bigger way. No more brutal travel. No more pushing his father to exhaustion. From now on, Europe-only shows, maybe smaller venues. The goal was simple: protect the man who gave the world so much joy. Pierre had gradually become the quiet anchor behind the scenes. André once oversaw every tiny detail himself, but now he let go because he trusted his son. Each scare had drawn them closer, and behind every note played on stage, there was Pierre, making sure it could happen safely. But André's life wasn't just music and heartbreak. It also carried moments of unexpected controversy. In 2015, during a beloved summer concert, he welcomed a Romanian children's music group led by Gheorghe Zamfir. What seemed like a charming moment turned into legal chaos. And as the curtain gradually lowers on this era, André Rieu isn't just leaving a musical footprint. He's handing down a philosophy, one built on resilience, joy, and a refusal to let the past define the present. His music will outlast him. But more than that, his legacy will play on in every fan who dared to feel, to dream, and to dance. And that's the real story behind the music, the man, and the magic of André Rieu. Don't forget to like, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood journeys.